A shipment of frozen chickens crosses the border. Inside, 2 tons of drugs. The photograph. A hitman posing with a customized FN-57 pistol. The message, likes and retweets. The mistake, active geolocation. The sentence, 10 days to die. This is the story of the man who invented digital narco culture and paid the highest price for vanity. The first to understand that power could be measured in followers. The last to comprehend that every like was a coordinate pointing toward his own death. May 16, 2020. A black BMW SUV appears abandoned on a dirt road near Ayune, on the outskirts of Culiacán, Sinaloa. Dawn covers the hills with a pale light. An anonymous call alerts the authorities. When they arrive, they find the SUV with its doors closed. Inside, 3 bodies wrapped in blankets, tortured, executed. One of them has his head covered with a black plastic bag, his hands tied with electrical wires. The body shows signs of beatings, of prolonged torture. The other 2, a woman and a man, lie in positions that suggest they witnessed their own deaths before being executed. The Sinaloa State Attorney General's office takes 2 days to confirm the identity. When it finally does, the news detonates like an explosive. José Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa, El Chino Antrax, founding leader of Los Ántrax, the armed wing of the Sinaloa Cartel, man of maximum trust for Ismael El Mayo Zambada, had returned home to die. Alongside him, his sister Ada Jimena and his brother-in-law Juan Guillermo Garcia, brother of a recently deceased local congressman. 3 lives erased in one night. 3 messages for those who understood the language of the narco. 10 days earlier, on May 6, 2020, Rodrigo had disappeared from his house arrest in San Diego, California. Federal agents Mark DeBlue Ryan and Kimberly Appalot arrived at the residence for a routine check. They found Rodrigo's cell phone on the table. They found the electronic monitor he was supposed to be wearing, but Rodrigo was gone. His belongings, his clothes, his documents, everything had been carefully packed and evacuated. No witnesses, no cameras recording his exit. He simply evaporated. At the most watched border in the world, in the middle of a global pandemic that had closed international crossings, Rodrigo Arechiga managed to cross from the United States into Mexico without leaving a trace. U.S. authorities issued an immediate arrest warrant. Magistrate Judge Dana M. Sabra ordered his urgent recapture. But by then, Rodrigo was already in Sinaloan territory. He had returned to the place where he built his legend, and that place was waiting for him. The house where they took him is in the Guadalupe Victoria neighborhood, east of Culiacán. It is historical territory of Los Ántrax. The facade was left marked by dozens of bullet impacts. The garage door completely destroyed. Neighbors reported a shootout that lasted for hours from midnight until dawn. Dozens of shots, automatic weapons, the sound of death in waves. Rodrigo recognized the men who came for him. They were from the cartel. Some were from Los Ántrax, acquaintances, comrades from past battles, men with whom he had shared operations, risks, victories. They had come to execute him. It was not random vengeance. It was a purge, ordered, calculated, inevitable. Rodrigo knew from the moment he saw them that no negotiation was possible. Only selling his skin dearly remained. He took an assault rifle. Holed up with his sister and brother-in-law, he returned fire for hours, but the ammunition ran out. And when the silence came, so did the sentence. The hitmen took him to the SUV, tortured him, asked him things he already knew they would ask, made him confess things they already knew, and when they were finished, they executed him. A shot to the head, wrapped in a blanket, deposited on a dirt road so the world would know that El Chino Antrax had died as traitors die in Sinaloa. But here is the contradiction that ignites this entire story. El Chino Antrax was not a traditional capo. He was not one of those who hide on remote ranches. He did not live in the shadows like Ismael El Mayo Zambada, who has gone decades without being photographed. On the contrary, Rodrigo showed off. He posted photos with Paris Hilton at boxing fights in Las Vegas. He showed his gold Lamborghinis parked in front of 5-star hotels. He flaunted gold-plated pistols with diamond inlays. He published videos from Dubai, Spain, France, Amsterdam. He traveled first class and documented it. He bought watches, Rolexes, and Audemars Piguets that cost as much as a house and displayed them in close-up in his photos. He had active accounts on Instagram under the aliases MeowSin7 and James Bond Fan7. On Twitter, he was Comandante57. He posted regularly, raffled luxury cars, latest generation cell phones, designer sunglasses, all in exchange for followers. He interacted with his fans, replied to comments, generated aspirational content, dressed like James Bond, posed with guns as if they were sports trophies, walked the streets of European cities as if he were a successful businessman. He built a personal brand, sold himself as a product, and the world bought the fantasy. His sneakers were all customized. Each pair had chino embroidered on the left foot and Antrax on the right. He collected dozens of them, showed them in videos, wore them on his trips. They were his signature, his visual identity. The number 5 was his symbol. His alias had 5 letters. His favorite weapon was an FN57. His operational codes began with 5. It was his brand, his code, his obsession. And all of this poses the central enigma. Why would a man who managed to escape house arrest in the United States, who evaded federal surveillance, who crossed the border undetected, voluntarily decide to return to the epicenter of the Sinaloa cartel in the middle of an internal war? Why would someone who had everything to disappear, to start a new life anywhere in the world, choose to return to the most dangerous place in Mexico, knowing they would kill him? Was it revenge? Was he trying to settle scores with those who betrayed him? Or was it a trap? Was he carrying an implanted tracking device to deliver Mayo Zambada's location to US authorities? Or could he simply not resist the call of the place that made him a legend? The answer lies at the intersection of 2 worlds. Traditional drug trafficking, built on discretion, anonymity, and operating in the shadows, and the digital age, where visibility became power, where likes translated into respect, where being seen meant being relevant. El Chino Antrax was the bridge between both worlds. He was the first drug trafficker to understand that organized crime could be sold as a brand. And that bridge, built on vanity and exposure, ended up collapsing on top of him. Because in the underworld, the rule is simple. He who shows himself dies. And Rodrigo Arechiga showed himself more than anyone. Culiacán, Sinaloa, early 2000s. The city is in full transformation. The Sinaloa Cartel, under the leadership of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael El Mayo Zambada, dominates the routes of the Mexican Pacific. Cocaine flows from Colombia, crosses Central America, traverses Mexico, and is distributed in the United States. It is a multi-billion-dollar business, and Culiacán is its operational heart. In that context, Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa grows up. He was born on June 15, 1980, into a lower middle-class family. He inherited neither power nor connections. He grew up in a neighborhood where organized crime was a constant presence, but not a certainty. His family did not live in extreme poverty, but they did not know luxury either. Rodrigo was an ordinary young man. He walked to school, took public transport, played soccer. His childhood predicted nothing extraordinary, except for one detail. 3 houses away lived Vicente Zambada Niebla, El Vicentillo, eldest son of Ismael Zambada Garcia, El Mayo, co-founder of the Sinaloa Cartel. Vicente and Rodrigo became friends in childhood. They were neighbors, played together, shared a life that on the surface seemed normal. No one would have imagined that this friendship would determine the fate of both. For years, Rodrigo tried to follow legitimate paths. He studied architecture, dreamed of designing buildings. He tried to enlist in the Mexican army. He aspired to be a pilot, but was rejected due to psoriasis. The illness disqualified him. The dream of the boy who wanted to fly ended in a doctor's office. He then set up a small fast food business, a modest taqueria where he sold tacos on the street. It was honest work, hard, poorly paid, but it was his. For a time, Rodrigo tried to live within the law. He got married, had a daughter, started a family. The economic pressure, however, was constant. Maintaining a house in Culiacán, feeding a family, paying bills with the income from a street taqueria was a daily war he could not win. And in Culiacán, when legal doors close, there are others that are always open. Vicente Zambada made him the offer. It was not an imposition. It was not a threat. It was an opportunity. Rodrigo had something the cartel valued: unwavering loyalty, coolness under pressure, and an absolute willingness to do whatever was necessary. At first, they were small jobs, transporting merchandise, surveillance, escort duty, minor tasks within a gigantic machinery. But Rodrigo proved to be more than an average employee. He was strategic, calculating, effective in high-pressure situations. When given an order, he carried it out without question. When assigned a mission, he executed it without hesitation. And soon, Vicente Zambada began to trust him not just as an employee, but as a personal protector. Rodrigo became his bodyguard, the man who accompanied him to meetings, who drove his armored vehicles, who watched his perimeter. He was invisible, efficient, loyal. In 2008, the structure of the Sinaloa cartel suffered a violent fracture that changed everything. The Beltrán Leyva brothers, former strategic partners of the cartel, split off following a series of arrests and betrayals they attributed to El Chapo Guzmán and El Mayo Zambada. The split was not peaceful. The Beltrán Leyvas declared war, and it was not a symbolic war, it was total war. What followed was a bloodbath that turned Sinaloa into a cemetery. Culiacán became a permanent battlefield. That year, the city recorded 116 homicides, 24 of them police officers. Nationally, the conflict left nearly 500 drug-related deaths in a single month, setting a record up to that time. The Beltrán Leyvas attacked the Zambada family directly. They tried to assassinate Vicente, ambushed convoys, murdered key operators, sowed terror. The Sinaloa cartel needed an immediate response. It needed an armed wing that would not only defend, but exterminate. It needed an elite group loyal exclusively to El Mayo Zambada, capable of meeting violence with superior violence. And Rodrigo Arechiga saw in that crisis the opportunity of his life. Along with other experienced hitmen like Alfredo Vizcarra Vega, El Los Ántrax, René Velázquez Valenzuela, El Sargento Phoenix, and Jesús Peña González, El 20, Rodrigo founded Los Ántrax. The name was no accident. He chose it inspired by the war in Iraq, by US Special Forces, by the idea of a lethal, unstoppable cell designed for extermination. Anthrax, a deadly bacteria, a poison with no antidote, a name that would terrorize enemies before they even saw them. Los Ántrax were not just hitmen, they were an elite squad. They had military training, used advanced tactical equipment, carried high-caliber weapons, AR-15 and AK-47 rifles, grenade launchers, bulletproof vests, encrypted radios. They operated with discipline. Each member had an alias, each operation a specific objective. They did not act on impulse. They acted under direct orders from El Mayo Zambada. Their mission was clear: protect Ismael Zambada Garcia and his family, eliminate threats from the Beltrán Leyva cartel, and ensure the cartel's territory remained under absolute control. The violence they unleashed was brutal. Los Ántrax did not just kill, they sent messages. They tortured their rivals, left bodies hanging from bridges, abandoned corpses in public places with written messages. They did not seek discretion, they sought terror, and they succeeded. In 2009, Vicente Zambada was arrested in Mexico City. El Vicentillo, Mayo's son, Rodrigo's childhood friend, was captured in a coordinated operation and extradited to the United States a year later. Rodrigo lost his closest protector. Many expected his career to end there, but the opposite happened. El Mayo Zambada, instead of sidelining Rodrigo, promoted him. He named him Plaza Boss of Culiacán and operational leader of Los Ántrax. Rodrigo became the man in charge of maintaining order in the heart of the cartel. He was no longer the bodyguard. He was the commander, the enforcer, the visible face of El Mayo Zambada's violence. And with that power, something in Rodrigo changed. He was no longer the neighborhood kid who sold tacos. He was no longer the frustrated architect or the rejected pilot. He was El Chino Ántrax, and the entire world was about to know him, not for his violence, but for his vanity. Los Ántrax were not a group of makeshift gangsters. They were a military structure within the Sinaloa cartel. They operated with discipline, clear hierarchies, and brutal but effective methods. Each member had an alias that reflected their role or personality. El Cheyo Ántrax, El 20, El Traca Ántrax, El Monkey, El Changuito. Each operation had a specific objective. The violence was not random. It was calculated, strategic. Every death sent a message. Every corpse was a warning. Rodrigo controlled a territory that encompassed Sinaloa, Sonora, Durango, Chihuahua, and Nuevo León. From Culiacán, he coordinated security operations for El Mayo Zambada and his sons. He eliminated rivals from the Beltrán Leyva cartel and the Arellano Felix organization. He supervised trafficking routes connecting Mexico with Colombia, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and the United States. Drugs entered via the Pacific, were transported north by truck, ship, and small plane, and were distributed in San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, all under his supervision. But Rodrigo's true innovation was not in the routes or the weapons, it was in creative logistics. El Chino had set up his first legitimate business years earlier, a chicken and egg distribution company. Officially, he transported food. In reality, his refrigerated trucks carried tons of cocaine and marijuana hidden among the frozen poultry. The vehicles crossed the border without raising suspicion, and that's how the cartel moved millions of dollars in drugs under the disguise of a poultry operation. According to Vicente Zambada, each truck transported 2 tons of drugs alongside the birds. It was effective, practically undetectable. Rodrigo was not just a hitman, he was an operator. He laundered money through properties and shell companies. He bought luxury cars with cash. He acquired Swiss watches. He financed private parties where musicians played corridos live. He lived like a millionaire and documented everything. Every purchase, every trip, every excess was recorded on his social media. Therein lay the twist. Rodrigo broke the oldest rule of drug trafficking: remain invisible. The great capos of the past avoided cameras, lived on remote ranches, constantly changed locations, left no traces. El Mayo Zambada has gone decades without being photographed. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman obsessively avoided cameras, but Rodrigo did the opposite. He became a celebrity. He posted photos from international airports. He showed off his customized weapons, his sneakers embroidered with chino on one foot and Antrax on the other. He published videos from boxing matches in Las Vegas, where he briefly appeared alongside Paris Hilton in an interview. His Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook accounts amassed tens of thousands of followers. He raffled off vehicles in exchange for likes. He generated engagement. He built an aspirational narrative of organized crime. In one of his most famous posts, he appears lying on a bed surrounded by bottles of expensive liquor while musicians play for him live in his bedroom. In another, he drives a Lamborghini, firing a submachine gun into the air. In yet another, he poses dressed as James Bond in front of a luxury hotel in Spain. Every image was a declaration: I am powerful, I am rich, I am untouchable. And it worked. The youth of Sinaloa idolized him. The corridos mentioned him as a hero. The movimiento alterado, a subgenre of narco corridos that glorified violence, turned him into an icon. He became a representative of narco culture, a figure symbolizing power, money, and absolute freedom. He wasn't hiding on a ranch. He was in Dubai, in Paris, in Amsterdam, living the life millions dreamed of. But every photo he uploaded was a coordinate, every video a clue, every like a digital trail that US authorities were meticulously following. Rodrigo built his empire on visibility, and that visibility became his downfall. October 2013, Los Cabos, Baja California Sur. A birthday party at a private beachfront complex. Guests drink, converse, celebrate under the palm trees and colored lights. Among them is Francisco Rafael Arellano Felix, former leader of the Tijuana Cartel, officially retired from drug trafficking after serving a sentence in the United States. He carries no bodyguards, expects no trouble. It's a family gathering, a private celebration. No one poses a threat until a clown enters. The man, dressed in a colorful costume and makeup, makes his way through the guests. He carries balloons, smiles, greets people, approaches Francisco Rafael, and when he is close enough, he pulls out a pistol and shoots him in the head. The gun jams. The clown fixes it in seconds with disturbing calm. He fires 5 more times. Francisco Rafael falls dead on the marble floor. The clown runs towards the beach and disappears into the darkness of the sea. Mexican authorities attribute the murder to El Chino Antrax. It was a surgical, theatrical, symbolic execution. Los Ántrax were sending a message. No one is safe, not even the retired ones. Culiacán was their territory, and whoever challenged those rules died. It didn't matter that Francisco Rafael was out of the business. It didn't matter that he posed no threat. He was an Arellano Felix, and that was enough. But the murder had consequences. Francisco Rafael belonged to one of the most powerful families in Mexican drug trafficking. His death set off alarms in the Tijuana Cartel and rival factions. Rodrigo became a high-priority target, not only for the cartel's enemies, but also for the authorities. The United States had been investigating him for years. They had charges for cocaine and marijuana trafficking, conspiracy to distribute drugs, and links to gangs in California. They knew of his connection to the Nitros, a gang in Southern California that distributed Sinaloa cartel drugs in San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, but they didn't know where he was. Rodrigo moved constantly, used false identities, had undergone plastic surgery to alter his face. He tried to erase his fingerprints with acid. He lived undercover using the name of a deceased Mexican citizen, Norberto Siqueiros Garcia, until he made the mistake. December 2013. Rodrigo posts a photo on Instagram from an airport. It's a simple image, nothing revealing in the content. It doesn't show his face, doesn't indicate the location, but the image's metadata contains the geolocation. US agents who had been monitoring his accounts for months trace the information. They discover he is in transit to Europe. They contact Interpol, coordinate with Dutch authorities, and wait. December 30th, 2013, Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam. Rodrigo disembarks from a flight originating in South America. He carries false documents in the name of Norberto Siqueiros Garcia. He plans to spend New Year's in Europe, far from the heat of Sinaloa, on one of those luxury getaways he so loved to document. But when he passes through customs, the agents are already waiting for him. They detain him, handcuff him, transfer him to a prison in the Netherlands. His last Instagram post days before was a farewell message. He was going on a trip. 7 months later, on July 10th, 2014, he is extradited to the United States. El Chino Antrax, the most media-savvy hitman of the Sinaloa cartel, the man who built a digital empire while killing rivals, the founder of Los Ántrax, had fallen. And all because of a photo on Instagram. All because he didn't turn off the geolocation on his phone. All because of the need to show the world where he was, what he was doing, how he lived. Vanity betrayed him. The very visibility that made him a legend made him a prisoner. And in San Diego, California, a cell awaited him, along with a series of federal charges and a decision that would determine whether he lived or died. San Diego, California, July 2014. Rodrigo Arechiga faces federal charges for conspiracy to distribute and import controlled substances. The prosecution has enough evidence to lock him away for decades. They have testimony from Vicente Zambada, his childhood friend, now turned protected witness for the US government. They have documents connecting his operations to international routes. They have financial records proving money laundering in the millions of dollars. They have wiretaps. They have tracking of his social media. They have everything. Rodrigo makes a decision. He negotiates, he pleads guilty, accepts the charges, but not only that. He agrees to cooperate with the authorities. He reveals trafficking routes connecting Mexico with Colombia, Guatemala, Belize, Costa Rica, Panama, Honduras, Asia, and Europe. He provides names of key operators. He describes transportation methods, from chicken trucks to fishing boats. He reveals contacts in gangs in Chula Vista and National City in San Diego that distribute cartel drugs in California, Chicago, and Los Angeles. He provides information on the structure of the Sinaloa cartel, on El Mayo Zambada, on Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, on the routes, the methods, the operators. In exchange for his cooperation, the prosecution reduces his sentence dramatically. Instead of life in prison or decades behind bars, he receives 7 years and 3 months. It is an unusually generous deal, too generous for someone accused of dozens of murders, of leading a squad of hitmen, of operating one of the most violent cells in Mexican drug trafficking. U.S. Attorney Laura Duffy publicly declares that El Chino Antrax is one of the highest-ranking Sinaloa cartel capos to be tried in the United States. And yet, the sentence is short, suspiciously short. In Sinaloa, everyone knows what a short sentence means after a high-profile capture. It means he talked. It means he cooperated. It means he betrayed. While he is imprisoned, his personal life collapses. May 2014, 4 months after his arrest in Amsterdam, Culiacán, Sinaloa, Yuriana Castillo Torres, his romantic partner and mother of his son, leaves a gym in the Desarrollo Urbano Tres Rios neighborhood. It is the morning of May 6th. Yuriana is a 23-year-old U.S. citizen who worked as a model. She was considered a figure of the buchona glamour scene, the term describing women romantically linked to drug traffickers who flaunt an ostentatious lifestyle on social media. Several men intercept her in the parking lot, force her into a white van. She struggles, screams, loses one purple sneaker. Witnesses report a gray Jeep accompanying the van. Yuriana disappears. Her mother, Norma Torres, will never see her alive again. The next day, May 7th, 2014, her body appears on a plot of land behind a high school preparatory of the Autonomous University of Sinaloa in the Lomas de Guadalupe neighborhood. She is wrapped in white sheets, tied with electrical wires. Morning witnesses exercising in the area saw a van stop. 2 men got out and threw out a wrapped bundle. They thought they were dumping trash. It was Yuriana's body. The Sinaloa State Attorney General's office determines she died from asphyxia by strangulation. Her body showed signs of torture, severe blows to the head, hands and feet tied. There were no gunshot wounds. It was a slow, painful murder, designed to send a message. Authorities never formally identify those responsible, but the message is evident. Rodrigo had talked, and someone was punishing him. They couldn't touch Rodrigo in a US prison, but they could touch his family, his partner, the mother of his son. It was the cartel's way of collecting debts. At the funeral home where her remains were viewed, there were floral offerings with messages from her husband Rodrigo, her mother Norma Torres, her children, from all of Los Ántrax. Fewer than 20 people attended. Yuriana was buried in the Jardines de Humaya cemetery, the same place where the great capos of Sinaloa rest. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Lord of the Skies, the family of Hector El Güero Palma. Her tomb is ostentatious, 2 stories with air conditioning, a mausoleum for a 23-year-old woman. Rodrigo serves his sentence in a maximum security prison in the United States. He behaves well, causes no trouble, follows the rules. And in March 2020, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, he is released to house arrest in San Diego. He must remain at his residence, wear an electronic monitor, and report 3 times a week to his supervisors, Mark Dublu Ryan and Kimberly A. Pilote. These are the conditions. If he follows them, he will be able to serve the remainder of his sentence on probation for 5 years. If he breaks them, he returns to prison immediately. Rodrigo breaks them. 33 days after his release, May 6th, 2020, the agents arrive at the residence for a routine check. They find his cell phone on the table. They find the electronic monitor, but all his belongings are gone. Rodrigo too. No traces, no witnesses, no signs of struggle or violence. He simply packed up and left. How did he cross the border? Who helped him? How did he evade immigration controls in the middle of a pandemic? No one knows, but authorities have a theory about why he returned to Culiacán. There are 2 versions. The first, revenge. In December 2019, months before his release, journalist Anabel Hernández publishes El Diario Secreto de Vicente Zambada, the secret diary of Vicente Zambada. In it, El Vicentillo reveals that it was he who turned Rodrigo in, that it was he who provided US authorities with the information leading to his capture in Amsterdam. Rodrigo found out while in prison and wanted to settle the score. He wanted to see El Mayo Zambada face to face. He wanted to ask him why his own son had given him up, why the family he had protected for years had betrayed him. The second version, final betrayal. According to rumors that circulated in Sinaloa after his death, Rodrigo carried an implanted GPS device. His plan was to get close to El Mayo Zambada and allow US authorities to track his location in real time. It was a desperate gamble, a final blow, ultimate revenge. To deliver the man who ordered Yuriana's murder, to deliver the capo who had never been captured. Neither version was officially confirmed because Rodrigo had no time to execute any plan. El Mayo Zambada, or Los Chapitos, or both, moved first. And when Rodrigo arrived in Culiacán, the sentence was already signed. May 14th, 2020, Guadalupe Victoria neighborhood, Culiacán. The house where Rodrigo is hiding with his sister and brother-in-law. It is night. Rodrigo hears engines, footsteps, looks out the window, and recognizes the men approaching. They are from the Sinaloa cartel. Hitmen from Los Ántrax, his own acquaintances, have come to kill him. Rodrigo grabs an assault rifle, returns fire. The shootout lasts until dawn. The facade of the house is left marked by dozens of bullet impacts. The garage door destroyed. But Rodrigo and his relatives run out of ammunition. They surrender. The hitmen take them hostage, put them in an SUV, torture them, and when they are finished, they execute them. Rodrigo receives a shot to the head. His sister and brother-in-law are also killed. They wrap them in blankets. They place them in a BMW SUV. They abandon them on a dirt road near Ayune. An anonymous call alerts the authorities. The message needs to be public. El Chino Antrax is dead. The traitor has been executed. May 16th, 2020. Authorities confirm the identities. The body remains in the morgue for almost a week, waiting for US officials to confirm his identity. When it is finally handed over to the family, the burial is discreet. Rodrigo Arechiga was interred in the Jardines de Humaya cemetery. His grave is discreet. Few people attended the funeral. There were no new corridos, no massive tributes. The man who built his legend on social media disappeared without fanfare. His Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook accounts remained inactive. His last posts frozen in time like digital ghosts. No one formally claims responsibility for the murder, but everyone knows who ordered the execution. It was an internal purge of the Sinaloa cartel. It could have been El Mayo Zambada, punishing cooperation with authorities. It could have been Los Chapitos, eliminating an ally of Mayo in the midst of an internal war. Or both. Traitors must die. In the following days, there was no retaliatory violence. No one avenged his death. That confirms that his execution was approved by the cartel's leaders. It was consensual, inevitable. But El Chino Antrax's legacy persists. Rodrigo was not the most powerful drug trafficker in Mexico. He was not the richest, but he was the first to understand that organized crime could be sold as a brand. He was the architect of digital narco culture, the pioneer who demonstrated that visibility could become power. And he also demonstrated that this visibility was a death sentence. Today, a new generation of narco influencers follows in his footsteps. They post photos with luxury cars, raffle off properties, accumulate millions of followers. Marquitos Toys, El Pirata de Culiacán. Dozens of young people selling the same fantasy: power, money, absolute freedom. But almost all end up the same: murdered, captured, on the run. Because the digital world does not forgive. Every photo is a coordinate, every video a confession, every like a trace. And in drug trafficking, attention is not admiration, it's a target on your back. In January 2025, small planes flew over Culiacán, dropping leaflets with the names of 25 influencers accused of working for Los Chapitos. Weeks later, the murders began. El Jasper, 70 bullet impacts. El Gordo Perusi, executed in his home. El Marquitos Toy's brother, murdered. One by one, the narco influencers fell exactly as Rodrigo fell. Rodrigo Arechiga wanted to be immortal. He built an image that would transcend his life, and he succeeded. His name is still mentioned, his photos still circulate, his corridos still play, but he paid the highest price. El Chino Antrax did not die for being a hitman. He died for being a celebrity. He was not executed for his crimes. He was executed for his vanity. And his legacy is the warning he left behind. In drug trafficking, visibility is not respect. It is a death sentence. Every like, every photo, every video is one more step towards the dirt road where someone will find your body wrapped in a blanket. Rodrigo was the first to sign that sentence with his own name, and millions of young people are signing it today. Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa understood something that few before him had grasped. In the 21st century, power was no longer just about how many men you commanded or how much territory you controlled. It was about how many people watched you. It was about the gaze of the masses, the validation of strangers, the currency of likes. He was a pioneer, an innovator in the most brutal industry on earth. He took the clandestine world of drug trafficking and dragged it into the glaring light of social media, forever changing the game. Before him, capos were ghosts. They existed in rumors, in whispered names, in blurry photographs taken from a distance. After him, a new breed emerged, the narco influencer. The criminal as celebrity, the murderer as lifestyle brand. And he paid for that innovation with everything he had: his freedom, his family, his life. But to understand the full weight of his story, we must go back to the beginning. Back to the dusty streets of Culiacán, where a boy named Rodrigo played soccer with a boy named Vicente, unaware that their childhood games were a prelude to a tragedy that would span decades and end in blood. Culiacán in the 1980s and 90s was a city undergoing a metamorphosis. It was still a provincial capital, known for its agriculture, its universities, its hot and humid climate. But beneath the surface, something was stirring. The drug trade, once a small-scale operation run by a few families, was becoming an industry. The Guadalajara cartel, led by Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, Rafael Caro Quintero, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, had established the first major trafficking networks. And when that cartel fractured following the arrest of Félix Gallardo in 1989, the pieces were picked up by his lieutenants. Among them were Joaquín Guzmán Loera and Ismael Zambada Garcia. They formed what would become the most powerful criminal organization in the Western Hemisphere, the Sinaloa Cartel. Culiacán became its headquarters, not a hidden camp in the mountains, but the actual city, with its streets, its neighborhoods, its schools, its families. The cartel was not separate from society. It was woven into its fabric. And in the neighborhood of Las Quintas, 3 houses apart, 2 boys grew up in the middle of this transformation. Vicente Zambada Niebla was the son of a man who was rapidly becoming a legend. Ismael Zambada Garcia, El Mayo, was not flamboyant like some others. He was quiet, strategic, patient. He built his power base slowly, through alliances and loyalty, not just violence. He was the shadow behind the throne, and eventually, the throne itself. Vicente grew up with the privileges of that position, but also with its burdens. He knew from an early age what his father did. He knew the risks, the dangers, the constant threat of death or prison. Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa, on the other hand, came from a different world. His family was not connected to the cartel. His father worked honest jobs. His mother raised the children. They were not poor, but they were not wealthy. They were the kind of family that populated the middle-class neighborhoods of Culiacán, striving for a better life within the law. Rodrigo was a good student, well-liked, athletic. He had dreams. He wanted to be an architect. He wanted to build things, to create. He also harbored a secret ambition, to fly. He dreamed of joining the Mexican Air Force, of becoming a pilot, of soaring above the world he knew. That dream was crushed by a skin condition, psoriasis, a disease that caused red, scaly patches on his skin. The military medical exam was strict. They rejected him. The sky was closed to him. It was a small thing, a medical technicality. But it was a door closing, and in Culiacán, when one door closes, another one, a darker one, often swings open. He tried the legitimate path. He studied architecture at the university. He was a decent student, but the passion was gone. The dream of building was a pale substitute for the dream of flying. He needed money. He needed to support himself and eventually a family. He opened a small taqueria. It was hard work. Long hours over a hot grill, dealing with customers, making barely enough to get by. He married. He had a daughter. He tried to be a good father, a good husband. But the taqueria was a struggle. Every day was a battle to keep it afloat, to pay the bills, to put food on his own table. He was fighting a war he couldn't win, a war against the system, against the economy, against the simple fact that in Culiacán, honest work was a path to poverty, not prosperity. And all around him, he saw another path. He saw the cars, the houses, the money. He saw the respect that came not from hard work, but from power. He saw the men who controlled the streets, who were feared, who were wealthy. He saw his friend Vicente, who had everything. And when Vicente made the offer, Rodrigo was ready. It wasn't a moment of moral crisis. It wasn't a decision he agonized over. It was a practical choice. A choice between a life of endless struggle and a life of opportunity. He chose opportunity. At first, the work was mundane. He was a driver, a lookout, a messenger. He learned the ropes. He proved himself reliable. He showed a coldness under pressure that impressed his superiors. When things went wrong, he didn't panic. When orders were given, he didn't question. He was a soldier, and a good one. Vicente Zambada noticed. He brought Rodrigo closer. He made him part of his personal security detail. Rodrigo became the man who drove Vicente's armored cars, who stood guard outside his meetings, who watched his back. He was trusted, He was loyal, and loyalty in the cartel world was the most valuable currency of all. The year 2008 was a turning point. The Beltrán Leyva brothers, Alfredo, Arturo, and Hector, had been key allies of the Sinaloa cartel. They controlled important territory and worked closely with El Chapo and El Mayo. But the arrest of Alfredo Beltrán Leyva in January 2008, allegedly facilitated by information from El Chapo's camp, shattered the alliance. The Beltrán Leyvas felt betrayed. They declared war. And it was a war unlike anything Mexico had seen before. The Beltrán Leyvas were not a small, insignificant group. They were powerful, well-armed, and ruthless. They had operatives throughout the country. They had corrupt officials in their pockets. They had the capacity to strike at the heart of the Sinaloa cartel, and strike they did. They targeted the Zambada family directly. They tried to kill Vicente. They assassinated key lieutenants. They attacked convoys. They created an atmosphere of constant terror. The Sinaloa cartel needed a response. It needed a force that could match the Beltrán Leyva's brutality and surpass it. It needed an elite unit dedicated solely to protection and extermination. El Mayo Zambada, always the strategist, decided to form such a unit. He handpicked the men. He chose the most ruthless, the most loyal, the most effective killers in his organization. And at the center of this new group, he placed Rodrigo Arechiga. Rodrigo, along with other trusted sicarios, became the founding member of Los Ántrax. The name was Rodrigo's idea. He was fascinated by the war in Iraq, by the stories of US Special Forces, by the concept of an elite unit with a terrifying name. Anthrax, a biological weapon, invisible, deadly, unstoppable. It was the perfect name for a group designed to instill fear. Los Ántrax were not your average cartel gunmen. They were trained. They used military tactics. They had access to the best weapons, high-caliber rifles, grenade launchers, armor-piercing rounds. They wore tactical vests and communicated with encrypted radios. They operated in small mobile cells, able to strike quickly and disappear. Their primary mission was to protect El Mayo and his family. But their secondary mission was to hunt down and destroy anyone who threatened them. They became the tip of the spear in the war against the Beltrán Leyvas. And they were devastatingly effective. The violence escalated to unprecedented levels. Bodies appeared hanging from bridges. Corpses were left in public plazas with messages. Torture was routine. Los Ántrax did not just kill their enemies, they made examples of them. They sent a clear message: cross the Zambada family, and this is what happens to you. Culiacán became a war zone. In 2008 alone, the city recorded 116 homicides. 24 of those were police officers. Nationwide, drug-related killings spiked to nearly 500 in a single month. The Beltrán Leyvas fought back fiercely, but Los Ántrax had the advantage of being a tightly organized, highly motivated force, fighting on their home turf. Rodrigo proved himself in this crucible of violence. He led operations. He coordinated attacks. He showed a talent for organization and a complete lack of mercy. He became El Mayo's go-to man for the most sensitive and dangerous missions. And when Vicente Zambada was arrested in Mexico City in 2009, Rodrigo's position became even more critical. Vicente's capture was a major blow. He was the heir apparent, the son who was being groomed to take over. His loss left a vacuum at the top of the organization's security apparatus. El Mayo needed someone he could trust absolutely. He chose Rodrigo. He promoted him to Plaza Boss of Culiacán, the most important operational position in the cartel's heartland, and he made him the overall leader of Los Ántrax. Rodrigo Arechiga, the taqueria owner, the rejected pilot, the frustrated architect, was now one of the most powerful men in the Sinaloa cartel. He commanded an army of killers. He controlled the flow of drugs through a key region. He had the ear of one of the most legendary capos in history. The power went to his head. It always does. The transformation was gradual at first, then sudden. Rodrigo began to change. He was no longer the quiet, loyal soldier. He was a commander, a kingpin, and he wanted the world to know it. This was the birth of El Chino Ántrax, the digital icon. Before Rodrigo, cartel leaders operated in the shadows. They knew that visibility meant vulnerability. They knew that every photograph was a potential piece of evidence, every public appearance a risk. They lived like ghosts, moving from safe house to safe house, never staying in one place too long, never attracting attention. El Mayo Zambada perfected this art of invisibility. To this day, there is no confirmed photograph of him as an adult. He is a legend precisely because he cannot be seen. Rodrigo rejected this model completely. He embraced the opposite. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be famous. He wanted the adulation of the masses, the respect of his peers, the envy of his enemies. He saw that in the new digital age, fame itself was a form of power. People with millions of followers could influence culture, shape opinions, become icons. Why should that be reserved for actors and musicians? Why couldn't a drug lord be a celebrity too? So he built his brand. He created Instagram accounts under names like Meow Sin 7 and James Bond Fan 7. His Twitter handle was Comandante 57. He posted constantly photos of his luxury cars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches, photos of his watches, Rolexes, Audemars Piguets, each worth more than most people's homes. Photos of his weapons, gold-plated pistols, customized rifles, the FN-57 that became his signature. Photos of his travels, Dubai, Paris, Amsterdam, Spain. Photos of his lifestyle, private jets, five-star hotels, exclusive clubs. He posed with celebrities. A brief appearance next to Paris Hilton at a boxing match in Las Vegas became one of his most prized images. He posed with models, with musicians, with other members of the cartel. He posed with his sneakers. This became a trademark. He had dozens of pairs of expensive sneakers, each one customized. On the left foot, Chino was embroidered. On the right foot, Ántrax. It was his signature, his mark. He was building a visual identity as carefully as any marketing executive. He interacted with his followers. He responded to comments. He held contests and raffles. He would announce that he was giving away a luxury car or the latest iPhone to a lucky follower. All they had to do was like, share, and follow. It was brilliant marketing. It built engagement. It made his followers feel connected to him, part of his world. He was not just a distant, fearsome figure. He was a friend, a benefactor, an idol. The narco corrido movement, already powerful in Sinaloa, embraced him. Bands wrote songs about him, glorifying his exploits, his wealth, his power. The Movimiento Alterado scene, with its violent lyrics and celebration of cartel culture, made him a central figure. He was mentioned in the same breath as legendary capos like El Chapo and El Mayo, even though his actual power was far less. But in the digital realm, perception was reality. And the perception was that El Chino Antrax was a star. He posted videos of himself driving his Lamborghini through the streets of Culiacán, firing a gun into the air. He posted videos of private parties where famous bands played for him in his own living room. He posted videos from his trips abroad, showing off his luxurious lifestyle. He was living the dream that millions of young people in Mexico and beyond aspired to, and they worshipped him for it. But the same digital tools that built his fame were also building his doom. Every photo he posted contained metadata, location data, timestamps, device information. U.S. law enforcement agencies, particularly the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, were watching. They had been investigating the Sinaloa cartel for years. They had informants, wiretaps, financial records. But tracking a moving target like Rodrigo was difficult. He used false identities. He had undergone plastic surgery to alter his appearance. He had tried to erase his fingerprints with acid. He was careful, or so he thought. But he couldn't resist the lure of social media. He couldn't stop showing off. And in December 2013, his vanity caught up with him. He posted a photo from an airport. It was a harmless image, just a shot of an airport lounge. But the metadata was still attached. The geolocation data revealed where he was. Agents traced it. They determined he was in transit to Europe. They alerted Interpol and coordinated with Dutch authorities. On December 30th, 2013, Rodrigo Arechiga arrived at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. He was traveling under a false identity using the name of a deceased Mexican citizen, Norberto Siqueiros Garcia. He thought he was safe. He thought he could spend New Year's in Europe, living the high life, documenting it all for his followers. But as he passed through passport control, Dutch authorities were waiting. They detained him. They confirmed his identity. El Chino Antrax, the most famous hitman in Mexico, was under arrest. His last Instagram post before his capture was a simple message. He was going on a trip. It was the post of a man who had no idea that his world was about to collapse. The news of his arrest sent shockwaves through the cartel world and beyond. It was a major victory for US and Dutch law enforcement. It was a stunning fall for a man who seemed untouchable. And it was a cautionary tale about the dangers of digital vanity. For 7 months, Rodrigo sat in a Dutch prison while extradition proceedings moved forward. On July 10, 2014, he was flown to the United States to face federal charges in San Diego. The indictment was sweeping. Conspiracy to import and distribute cocaine and marijuana, money laundering, and other charges. The evidence against him was overwhelming. U.S. prosecutors had years of investigation, wiretaps, financial records, and witness testimony. They also had a key witness who could seal his fate, his childhood friend, Vicente Zambada Niebla. El Vicentino had been arrested in 2009 and extradited to the U.S. in 2010. Facing life in prison, he made a deal. He became a cooperating witness for the U.S. government. He provided detailed information about the inner workings of the Sinaloa cartel, about his father's operations, about El Chapo, about the trafficking routes, about the corruption, about everything. And he provided information about Rodrigo Arechiga. In his testimony and in his book, El Diario Secreto de Vicente Zambada, he revealed that it was he who had given up Rodrigo's location to U.S. authorities. He was the one who led them to Amsterdam. Rodrigo, sitting in his cell, learning that his oldest friend, the boy he played soccer with, the man he protected, the family he served, had betrayed him. The anger must have been incandescent. But Rodrigo was a pragmatist. He was facing decades in prison, possibly life. His only way out was to do what Vicente had done, cooperate. He made the deal. He pleaded guilty and agreed to provide extensive cooperation to the U.S. government. In exchange, his sentence was reduced to a remarkably lenient 7 years and 3 months. He revealed routes, methods, operators. He gave up secrets that could have gotten him killed 100 times over. But he was in US custody, protected by the government, or so he thought. While he sat in prison, the consequences of his cooperation were already playing out in Sinaloa. The cartel, particularly the Zambada faction, knew he was talking. They knew he was providing information that could harm them, and they decided to send a message. The message was Juliana Castillo Torres. Juliana was Rodrigo's partner, the mother of his young son. She was a beautiful young woman, a US citizen, a model, a prominent figure in the buchona scene. She lived the lifestyle Rodrigo had created: luxury, attention, visibility. She posted photos of herself in expensive clothes at exclusive events, living the dream. On May 6, 2014, 4 months after Rodrigo's arrest, she left a gym in Culiacán. It was morning around 8:30 a.m. She was wearing workout clothes, sneakers. As she walked to her car in the parking lot, several men intercepted her. They forced her into a white van. She struggled. She screamed. She lost one of her purple sneakers in the struggle. Witnesses saw a gray Jeep accompanying the van. Then they were gone. Juliana Castillo Torres disappeared. Her mother, Norma Torres, waited in anguish. She called Rodrigo's family. She called the authorities. No one knew anything. The next day, May 7th, the answer came. Juliana's body was found on a vacant lot behind a high school in the Lomas de Guadalupe neighborhood. She was wrapped in white sheets, bound with electrical wire. She had been strangled. Her body showed signs of severe beating and torture. It was a brutal, vicious murder designed to inflict maximum pain and send an unmistakable message. The message was for Rodrigo, sitting in his US prison cell. This is what happens to those who betray us. This is what happens to your family. This is what awaits you if you ever come back. The authorities in Sinaloa investigated, but no one was ever formally charged. Everyone knew who was responsible: the Sinaloa cartel. Whether it was ordered by El Mayo himself or by others seeking to prove their loyalty, the result was the same. Juliana was dead because Rodrigo talked. She was a casualty of his war, a sacrifice to his ambition and his subsequent betrayal. Her funeral was attended by fewer than 20 people. She was buried in the Jardins de Humaya Cemetery, the same exclusive resting place of the capos. Her tomb is a small mausoleum, 2 stories high, with air conditioning. A lavish resting place for a 23-year-old woman whose life was cut short by the violence her partner represented. Rodrigo, in his cell, received the news. The grief must have been overwhelming, the guilt unbearable, but also the rage. He knew who ordered it. He knew why, and he knew that one day he would have to face them. The years passed. Rodrigo served his time. He was a model prisoner, staying out of trouble, following the rules. His cooperation continued, providing valuable intelligence to US authorities. His sentence, already reduced, was further shortened by good behavior. And then, in March 2020, the world changed. The COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe. Prisons became hotspots. To reduce overcrowding and protect vulnerable inmates, the US Bureau of Prisons began releasing some prisoners to home confinement. Rodrigo Arechiga, now 39 years old, with only a few months left on his sentence, was a candidate for release. On March 27, 2020, he was transferred from federal prison to house arrest in San Diego. The conditions were strict. He had to remain at his residence at all times except for pre-approved medical appointments or legal meetings. He had to wear an electronic monitoring device on his ankle. He had to report to his supervising officers, Mark W. Ryan and Kimberly A. Pelot, 3 times a week. He had to follow all the rules. If he did, he would complete his sentence and then serve 5 years of supervised release. If he didn't, he would go back to prison. For 33 days, Rodrigo followed the rules. He stayed in his apartment. He checked in with his officers. He wore the monitor. He was a model prisoner, even in freedom. But inside, the rage was still there. The grief for Juliana, the betrayal by Vicente, the knowledge that his family was still in Sinaloa, still vulnerable, and the burning desire for revenge. On May 6, 2020, exactly 6 years to the day after Juliana was kidnapped, Rodrigo made his move. Agents W. Ryan and Pelot arrived at his residence for a routine check. They knocked, no answer. They used their key to enter. The apartment was empty. Rodrigo's cell phone was on the table. His electronic monitor was on the floor, still beeping, still transmitting a signal that he was inside. But he was gone. His clothes, his documents, his personal belongings, all gone. He had packed carefully and vanished without a trace. How did he do it? In the middle of a pandemic, with the US-Mexico border supposedly closed to all but essential travel, how did a high-profile federal inmate escape house, arrest and cross into Mexico? The theories abound. Some say he had help from corrupt officials on both sides of the border. Others say he used a false identity and slipped through a legal port of entry with documents that wouldn't raise suspicion. Still others say he crossed through the desert using the same routes he had once used to smuggle drugs. The truth is unknown. What is known is that within days, Rodrigo Arechiga was back in Culiacán, the heart of enemy territory, the place where his lover was murdered, the place where the men he betrayed were waiting. Why did he go back? It's the question that haunts his story, the mystery that no one can definitively answer. There are only theories, each one more chilling than the last. The first theory is revenge. Rodrigo knew that Vicente Zambada had betrayed him. He knew that the cartel, specifically the Zambada faction, had ordered the murder of Yuriana. He had spent 6 years in prison, stewing in that knowledge, feeding his rage. His cooperation with US authorities was not just about saving himself, it was also about gathering information, about building a case, about preparing for the moment when he could strike back. By 2020, he had provided enough intelligence to significantly damage the Sinaloa cartel's operations. But that wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted to confront El Mayo himself. He wanted to look into the eyes of the man who had once trusted him, who had promoted him, who had made him a legend, and ask him why. Why did you kill her? Why did you betray me? Why? And maybe, just maybe, he wanted to settle the score in the most final way possible. The second theory is even darker. It suggests that Rodrigo's escape was not an escape at all, but a mission. According to this theory, US authorities knew he was going to flee. They may have even facilitated it, because Rodrigo was carrying something with him, an implanted GPS tracking device. His real target was not revenge against the cartel in general. His real target was El Mayo Zambada himself. For decades, US law enforcement had been trying to capture Ismael Zambada Garcia. He was the ghost, the shadow, the man who could not be found. They had captured El Chapo, but El Mayo remained free, elusive, untouchable. If Rodrigo could get close to him, if he could lead US authorities to his location, it would be the greatest prize in the history of the war on drugs. It would be the ultimate act of vengeance, not just for Yuriana, but for everything. Rodrigo, knowing he was a dead man either way, chose to make his death count. He chose to become the bait in the most dangerous trap imaginable. Which theory is true? Perhaps both. Perhaps revenge and mission were the same thing. Perhaps Rodrigo saw a way to destroy his enemies while also destroying himself, a final, glorious, suicidal act of defiance. But he never got the chance. The cartel moved faster than he did. They knew he was coming. They may have had informants inside the US government. They may have been tracking him as closely as he was tracking them. The moment he crossed into Mexico, his fate was sealed. He arrived in Culiacán and went into hiding. He didn't go to a luxury hotel or a public place. He went to a modest house in the Guadalupe Victoria neighborhood east of the city. With him were his sister, Ada Jimena Arechiga Gamboa, and her husband, Juan Guillermo Garcia Paez. Juan Guillermo was the brother of a recently deceased local congressman, adding a political dimension to the tragedy. They thought they were safe. They thought they could hide until Rodrigo could make his move. They were wrong. On the night of May 14th, 2020, the house was surrounded. The men who came were not strangers. They were from the cartel. Many of them were from Los Ántrax. They were Rodrigo's own men, his former comrades, the soldiers he had led into battle. They had come to execute him. Rodrigo saw them through the window. He knew there was no negotiation, no escape, no mercy. He grabbed an assault rifle and opened fire. The shootout lasted for hours. Neighbors cowered in their homes, listening to the relentless crack of gunfire, the roar of automatic weapons, the explosions of grenades. The facade of the house was riddled with bullets. The garage door was blown apart, but Rodrigo and his family were trapped, outnumbered, outgunned. Eventually their ammunition ran out. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the noise. The sicarios stormed the house. They took Rodrigo, his sister, and his brother-in-law alive. They were going to make this last. They were taken to a vehicle. The torture began. It was prolonged, systematic, brutal. They asked him questions. though they already knew the answers. They made him confess, though there was nothing left to confess. They wanted to break him, to humiliate him, to make him feel every ounce of pain before he died. And when they were done, they executed him. A single shot to the head. Then they killed his sister. Then they killed her husband. 3 bodies wrapped in blankets, loaded into a black BMW SUV. The vehicle was driven to a dirt road near the community of Ayune on the outskirts of Culiacán. It was abandoned there, doors closed, waiting. An anonymous call was made to the authorities. The message needed to be public. The bodies were discovered on May 16th. The scene was gruesome. The 3 corpses, wrapped in blankets, showed clear signs of torture and execution. One of them, Rodrigo, had his head covered with a black plastic bag, his hands tied with electrical wire. The message was unmistakable. This is what happens to traitors. The Sinaloa State Attorney General's office took 2 days to confirm the identities. When they did, the news exploded across Mexico and the United States. El Chino Antrax was dead. The founder of Los Ántrax, the man who had built a digital empire on vanity and violence, had been killed by his own people. The body was held in the morgue for nearly a week as US officials worked to confirm the identification. When it was finally released to the family, the burial was discreet. He was interred in the Jardins de Humaya cemetery, the same place where Yuriana rests, where the capos rest. But his grave is modest, unremarkable. Few attended the funeral. There were no corridos composed in his honor, no public mourning, no tributes from the fans who had once worshipped him online. The man who lived for attention died in obscurity. His social media accounts, once vibrant with photos and videos and interactions, fell silent. His last posts remain frozen in time, digital ghosts of a life that ended in blood. No one claimed responsibility for the murder officially, but everyone knew it was a purge, an internal execution ordered by the leadership of the Sinaloa Cartel. Whether it was El Mayo Zambada settling the score with a man who had cooperated with the enemy, or Los Chapitos, the sons of El Chapo, eliminating a potential rival in their ongoing power struggle, or both acting in concert, the result was the same. Rodrigo Arechiga was killed because he was a traitor. In the days and weeks that followed, there was no retaliatory violence. No one came to avenge him. That silence was the final confirmation. His death was sanctioned at the highest levels. He died alone, abandoned by everyone he had ever fought for. But his story does not end there. His legacy, the thing he created, the monster he unleashed, lives on. Rodrigo Arechiga was not just a killer, he was an innovator. He was an innovator. He was the first person to understand that in the 21st century, crime could be marketed like a product, that violence could be sold as a lifestyle, that murderers could become influencers. Before him, the narcos were shadows. After him, they became celebrities. He pioneered the use of social media to build a personal brand. He showed that likes and followers could translate into real-world power and respect. He created a template that thousands of others would follow. Today, a new generation of narco-influencers fills the digital void he left behind. They post photos of themselves with luxury cars, with exotic animals, with weapons. They flaunt their wealth, their women, their power. They interact with fans, hold contests, build followings. They are the heirs to El Chino Antrax, whether they know it or not. Names like Marquitos Toys, El Pirata de Culiacán, and dozens of others have emerged, each trying to replicate his formula. They sell the same fantasy, that crime pays, that violence is glamorous, that the cartel life is a path to riches and freedom. They attract millions of followers, mostly young people, who dream of escaping their own poverty and obscurity. But they also attract the same dangers that killed Rodrigo, because in the cartel world, visibility is not an asset, it's a liability. Attention is not admiration, it's a target. Every photo they post is a clue for law enforcement. Every video is evidence. Every like is a digital footprint leading back to them. And just as importantly, every post is a provocation to rival cartels, to enemies, to the very organization they claim to represent. In January 2025, the consequences of this new narco-digital culture became brutally clear. Small planes flew over Culiacán, dropping leaflets. The leaflets contained the names and photos of 25 social media influencers accused of working for Los Chapitos, the faction of the Sinaloa cartel led by the sons of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The message was a warning, a threat, a declaration of war. Weeks later, the killings began. El Jasper, a popular influencer, was shot dead, his body riddled with 70 bullets. El Gordo Peruzzi was executed in his own home. The brother of Marquitos Toys was assassinated. One by one, the new generation of narco influencers began to fall, exactly as Rodrigo had fallen. They were killed by rivals, by enemies, by the very violence they had glorified online. They died because they were seen. They died because they had followers. They died because they had not learned the lesson that Rodrigo learned too late. In the underworld, the spotlight is a death sentence. The cycle continues. The narco culture that Rodrigo helped create is now consuming its own children. Young men and women, seduced by the fantasy of wealth and fame, post their photos, build their followings, and wait for the inevitable. Some will be killed by rivals, some will be captured by authorities, some will simply disappear, but new ones will always take their place. The dream is too powerful, the lure of attention too strong, and so the wheel turns, grinding up lives and spitting out corpses, all in the service of an illusion. Rodrigo Arechiga was a product of his time and place. He was born into a world where the traditional paths to success were blocked for most people. He was smart, ambitious, and willing to take risks. He found a way to rise, using violence and intelligence, loyalty and betrayal. He became rich, powerful, famous. He lived the dream that millions share, but the dream was a nightmare in disguise. The power was an illusion, the fame was a trap, and in the end, he died exactly as he had lived, violently, publicly, and alone. His body was found on a dirt road, wrapped in a blanket, a message to the world. It was the final post, the ultimate like, the last piece of content from the man who invented digital narco culture. And it was a warning that no one will heed, because the allure of the spotlight is stronger than the fear of the grave. The story of El Chino Antrax is a story about Mexico, about the drug war, about violence and corruption. But it is also a story about human nature, about the desire to be seen, to be valued, to be someone, about the lengths people will go to escape obscurity, and about the terrible price that visibility can exact. Rodrigo Arechiga wanted to be immortal. He built a digital monument to himself, a collection of images and videos that would outlast his physical body. In that sense, he succeeded. His name is still known, his photos still circulate, his legend lives on, but the monument is also a tombstone. Every image he posted was a brick in the wall of his own prison. Every like he received was a nail in his coffin. He became famous and then he became dead. And the two things were not unrelated. The same forces that elevated him destroyed him. The same tools that built his empire dug his grave. He was the architect of his own glory and the engineer of his own demise. And now, millions of young people are following his blueprint, building their own digital empires, courting their own destruction. They post their photos, flex their wealth, boast their connections, never realizing that they are also posting their own death warrants. They are the children of El Chino Antrax, and they are destined to share his fate. Because in the end, the rule is simple and unchanging. He who shows himself, dies. Rodrigo showed himself more than anyone, and he died more horribly than most. His story is a cautionary tale for the digital age. A reminder that the spotlight is not always a blessing, a warning that fame can be fatal. But it is also a story that will be ignored because the human hunger for attention is insatiable. And as long as there are young people willing to risk everything for a moment in the sun, there will be bodies on dirt roads, wrapped in blankets, waiting to be found. El Chino Antrax was the first. He will not be the last. The digital graveyard is filling up, and the headstones all have the same epitaph. He had too many followers. The investigation into Rodrigo's death was swift and superficial. Mexican authorities, accustomed to the routine violence of the drug war, treated it as just another cartel killing. They documented the scene, collected the bodies, interviewed a few neighbors, and closed the case. No arrests were ever made, no suspects were ever named. The official file gathered dust on a shelf, another unsolved murder in a country with hundreds of thousands of them. In the United States, the reaction was different. Rodrigo's escape from house arrest was an embarrassment for the federal agencies responsible for supervising him. Questions were asked, investigations were launched. How did a high-profile cooperating witness simply walk away from supervision? How did he cross the border undetected? Who helped him? The answers, if they were ever found, were never made public. The agents involved, Mark Dublu Ryan and Kimberly A. Pilote, were presumably reprimanded or reassigned. But no one went to prison for letting El Chino Antrax slip through their fingers, and no one was held accountable for his subsequent murder. The US government had lost a valuable asset. Rodrigo had provided intelligence that helped dismantle parts of the Sinaloa cartel's infrastructure. His death was a setback, but not a catastrophic one. There were always other informants, other sources, other cooperating witnesses. The machine kept running. The war on drugs continued. For the Zambada family, Rodrigo's death was a necessary cleansing. He had betrayed them, cooperated with the enemy, provided information that led to arrests and seizures. His execution was a message to anyone else who might consider following his path. This is what happens to traitors. The message was received. In the months and years that followed, no major figure in the Sinaloa cartel defected to become a cooperating witness. The lesson of El Chino Antrax was too stark, too terrifying. Better to rot in a Mexican prison than to die on a dirt road, wrapped in a blanket, with a bullet in your head. For the people of Culiacán, Rodrigo's death was a spectacle, a piece of local lore. He was a hometown boy who made good, then bad, then dead. His story was told in corridos, whispered in bars, debated on social media. Some saw him as a hero, a man who rose from nothing to become a legend. Others saw him as a cautionary tale, a fool who let his vanity destroy him. Most simply saw him as another casualty of a war that never ends. For his family, the pain was private and permanent. His daughter, the child from his first marriage, grew up without a father. His son with Yuriana, the boy who lost both parents to cartel violence, was raised by relatives. The Arechiga name, once whispered with fear and respect, became a reminder of tragedy. The family retreated from public view, unwilling to be associated with the legacy of violence Rodrigo left behind. And what of Yuriana Castillo Torres, the beautiful young woman whose murder set so much in motion? Her tomb in Jardins de Humaya is a tourist attraction of sorts, a stop on the macabre tours that guide curious visitors through the cemetery of the Capos. People take photos of her mausoleum, comment on its extravagance, wonder about her short, tragic life. She has become a symbol, like Rodrigo, of the narco culture that consumes its own. A beautiful face frozen in time, a cautionary tale for young women who dream of the buchona lifestyle. The message is clear. This could be you. The digital legacy of El Chino Antrax remains online, a ghost in the machine. His Instagram accounts, long inactive, are still visible. Thousands of photos, carefully curated, endlessly scrolled. The luxury cars, the exotic travels, the customized sneakers, the gold-plated guns. The image of a man who had everything except the sense to know when to stop. The comments on his posts have become a kind of digital shrine. Fans leave messages of admiration, of mourning, of conspiracy theories. They speculate about who killed him, why he really returned, what secrets he took to the grave. They post emojis of praying hands, of skulls, of fire. They treat his profile as a sacred space, a monument to a fallen idol. But beneath the surface of these digital tributes, there is a darker current. Many of the commenters are young, very young. They see Rodrigo's life as aspirational. They want what he had, the money, the power, the attention. They ignore the end of the story, focusing only on the beginning and the middle. They are the next generation of narco influencers, already planning their own rise, already ignoring the inevitable fall. The cycle of violence and visibility continues, fueled by the very platforms that Rodrigo helped pioneer. In this sense, Rodrigo Arechiga achieved a kind of immortality. Not the immortality of the soul or the spirit, but the immortality of the algorithm. His image persists, his story is told, his legend grows. Every time someone likes one of his old photos, every time a new corrido is written about him, every time a young influencer copies his style, he lives again. But it is a hollow immortality, a digital echo of a life that ended in agony on a dirt road. It is the immortality of the cautionary tale, the ghost in the machine, the warning that no one heeds. Because the human hunger for attention is stronger than the fear of death. And as long as that hunger exists, there will be more Rodrigos, more Yurianas, more bodies on dirt roads, more digital ghosts haunting the platforms they once used to build their empires. The story of El Chino Antrax is not just a story about Mexico or about drugs. It is a story about all of us, about our own relationship with visibility, about the choices we make and the prices we pay. We live in a world where attention is the most valuable currency, where being seen is the highest good, where the number of followers defines our worth. Rodrigo Arechiga took that logic to its extreme conclusion. He became the ultimate influencer, the ultimate celebrity, the ultimate icon of a culture that worships fame above all else. And he paid the ultimate price. His death was not an anomaly, it was a logical outcome. In the digital age, visibility is power, but it is also vulnerability. To be seen is to be targeted. To be famous is to be hunted. And in the underworld, where the hunters are armed and merciless, the spotlight is a death sentence. Rodrigo knew this on some level, but he couldn't stop. The addiction to attention was too strong. The validation of strangers was too sweet. The dream of immortality was too seductive. So he kept posting, kept showing, kept building his digital empire, even as the walls closed in around him. And when the end came, it came exactly as it had to, violently, publicly, and alone. He was found on a dirt road, wrapped in a blanket, a bullet in his head. The final post, the ultimate like, the last piece of content from the man who invented digital narco culture. And the world scrolled on, already looking for the next sensation, the next influencer, the next body. Because that's how it works now. We consume the lives and deaths of others as content, as entertainment, as distraction. We like, we share, we comment, and then we move on. Rodrigo Arechiga understood that better than anyone. He built his empire on our attention, and when he died, we gave him our attention one last time. Then we moved on to the next story, the next tragedy, the next body on a dirt road. The cycle never ends. It just keeps spinning, grinding up lives and spitting out content, feeding the insatiable hunger of the digital age. El Chino Antrax was a pioneer. He showed us the future, and the future is a cemetery of digital ghosts. Each one begging for our attention, each one doomed to be forgotten. In the end, that may be the real lesson of his story. Not that visibility kills, but that visibility is an illusion. The likes don't last. The followers move on, the fame fades, and all that remains is a body on a dirt road, wrapped in a blanket, waiting to be found. Rodrigo Arechiga wanted to be immortal. He built a digital monument to himself, but monuments crumble, digital ghosts fade, and in the end, we are all just content, scrolling toward oblivion. His story is our story, his fate is our fate, because in the digital age, we are all influencers now. And we are all, in our own way, walking toward the dirt road. The only question is how long it will take us to get there, and how many likes we'll get along the way. Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa's life was a paradox wrapped in a contradiction, drenched in blood and filtered through a smartphone lens. He was a man who craved the shadows for his work, but demanded the spotlight for his identity. He killed in darkness, but lived in the glaring, unforgiving light of the digital world. This duality was his genius and his destruction. To understand him fully, we must strip away the mythology he so carefully constructed and look at the man beneath the brand. Who was Rodrigo really? He was a boy from a decent family who watched his friend Vicente inherit a kingdom while he inherited a taqueria. He was a young man with dreams of flight, grounded by a skin condition, forced to watch his ambitions crash and burn. He was a husband and father who chose the cartel over his family, trading diaper changes for drive-by shootings. He was a killer who collected sneakers, a gangster who studied architecture, a fugitive who couldn't stop posting selfies. He was, in short, a human being, with all the complexity, contradiction, and capacity for self-destruction that implies. The psychology of El Chino Antrax is a case study in the toxic fusion of masculinity, poverty, and social media. In a society where traditional paths to success are blocked for most, where the gap between the ultra-wealthy elite and the struggling masses is a chasm, criminal enterprise offers a shortcut. It offers the promise of instant riches, immediate respect, and a kind of power that no university degree can provide. For young men like Rodrigo, trapped in the cycle of legitimate poverty, the cartel beckons like a golden ticket, but it's a ticket that comes with an expiration date. The narco culture that Rodrigo helped create is built on a foundation of insecurity. It's a performance of masculinity so extreme, so over the top, that it reveals its own fragility. The guns, the cars, the women, the wealth, all of it is a desperate attempt to prove something, to assert dominance in a world that offers few other avenues for male validation. The social media presence is the final piece of this performance. It's not enough to be powerful. You have to be seen being powerful. It's not enough to be rich. You have to display the wealth for an audience. The followers become witnesses, validating the performance, confirming the illusion. Rodrigo was a master of this performance. He understood that in the digital age, perception is reality. If millions of people believe you're a legend, then you are a legend, regardless of the mundane truth. He curated his image with the care of a Hollywood publicist, crafting a persona that was larger than life, more glamorous than reality, more terrifying than any single man could be. The photos of him with Paris Hilton were carefully chosen. They weren't just celebrity sightings, they were status markers. They said, "I move in the same circles as the rich and famous. I belong in this world." Never mind that he was a brief background figure in a boxing match crowd. The photo, cropped and filtered, told a different story. The photos of his guns, his cars, his watches, all meticulously arranged, all designed to project an image of effortless power. But the effort was immense. Maintaining the illusion of El Chino Antrax was a full-time job. And like any job, it came with stress, with pressure, with the constant fear of being exposed. The irony is that the exposure that finally destroyed him was not exposure as a fraud, but exposure as a target. His digital persona, designed to project invincibility, actually broadcast his vulnerabilities to the world. Every geotagged photo was an invitation to his enemies. Every boastful post was a challenge to rivals. Every display of wealth was a reminder to the cartel bosses that their subordinate was getting too big for his britches. In the cartel world, hierarchy is everything. You do not outshine your bosses. You do not become more famous than the men who sign your paychecks. Rodrigo, in his hunger for attention, forgot this fundamental rule. He became a star, but his bosses remained in the shadows, and in that imbalance, his death warrant was written. The Mayo Zambada, a man who has spent his entire adult life avoiding cameras, must have watched Rodrigo's social media antics with a mixture of amusement and concern. On one hand, the attention brought heat. On the other hand, it was useful. A visible, famous lieutenant attracted enemies and law enforcement attention away from the hidden boss. For years, Rodrigo served as a kind of decoy, a flashy target for the authorities, while El Mayo operated in obscurity. But when Rodrigo was captured and began cooperating, the calculus changed. He was no longer a useful decoy, he was a dangerous liability. He knew too much. He had access to too many secrets. And he was now in the hands of the enemy, providing intelligence that could bring down the entire organization. The decision to eliminate him was inevitable. The only question was when and how. The murder of Yuriana Castillo Torres was the first step. It was a warning, a message that Rodrigo's family was not safe, that his cooperation would have consequences. But it was also a test. The cartel wanted to see how Rodrigo would react. Would he double down on his cooperation, seeking revenge through the US justice system? Or would he break, recant his testimony, try to make amends? Rodrigo's reaction was complicated. He continued to cooperate, but he also began planning his escape. He couldn't let Yuriana's murder go unanswered. He couldn't live with the knowledge that his betrayal had cost her life. And so he hatched a plan, a desperate, suicidal plan, to return to Sinaloa and confront his enemies face to face. Whether that plan involved revenge alone or revenge combined with a final betrayal of his own, we will never know. The cartel moved first. They found him, surrounded him, and killed him. The execution was brutal, public, and symbolic. It was designed to send a message not just to Rodrigo, but to everyone who might consider following his path. This is what happens to traitors. This is what happens to those who forget their place. This is what happens when you let your vanity destroy your judgment. The message was received. In the aftermath of Rodrigo's death, the digital narco culture he pioneered continued to thrive, but with a new, darker undertone. The young influencers who post their photos, who flex their wealth, who boast their connections, now do so with the knowledge that they are walking the same path Rodrigo walked. They know, on some level, that the spotlight is a target, but they can't stop. The addiction is too strong, the validation is too sweet. The dream of fame and fortune is too seductive. They post and they wait, and they hope that they will be the exception, that they will somehow beat the odds that killed El Chino Antrax. They won't. The odds are not in their favor. The cartel world is a machine that consumes its own. The young men who rise quickly often fall just as fast, victims of their own ambition, of rival factions, of law enforcement, of the very violence they celebrate. The digital narcissism that Rodrigo perfected only accelerates the process, providing enemies and authorities with a constant stream of intelligence, a real-time map of their movements, associations, and vulnerabilities. It's as if they are painting targets on their own backs and then wondering why they keep getting shot. The tragedy of Rodrigo Arechiga is not that he died violently. In the world he chose, violent death is the norm, not the exception. The tragedy is that he could have been something else. He had intelligence, charisma, drive. He could have been a legitimate success, a businessman, an architect, maybe even a pilot, if not for the psoriasis. But he chose the shortcut. He chose the easy path to wealth and power, not realizing that the easy path is also the most dangerous, the most likely to end in a ditch. And in choosing that path, he not only condemned himself but also those he loved. Juliana died because of him. His sister and brother-in-law died because of him. His children grew up without a father, marked by his legacy, haunted by his choices. The cost of his ambition was measured not just in his own blood, but in the blood of everyone close to him. This is the true calculus of the cartel life. The rewards are real: money, power, respect. But the risks are catastrophic, and the risks are not borne solely by the individual. They are shared by family, by friends, by anyone unlucky enough to be associated with the chosen one. Rodrigo's story is a stark illustration of this principle. Every step he took toward power was a step toward the destruction of his family. Every like he received was a nail in someone else's coffin. His rise was built on the suffering of others, and his fall dragged others down with him. In the end, the digital monument he built for himself is also a mass grave. The photos that remain, frozen in time, show a man at the height of his power, surrounded by luxury, seemingly invincible. But behind every image is a story of violence, of betrayal, of death. The Lamborghini was bought with drug money that funded murders. The watches were purchased with profits from cocaine that destroyed countless lives. The trips to Dubai and Paris were financed by an organization that hangs bodies from bridges and leaves corpses in public plazas. The glamour was a veneer, a thin layer of polish over a foundation of pure, unadulterated horror, and yet people continue to be seduced by it. The narco culture that Rodrigo helped create is more powerful than ever. It permeates music, fashion, social media. It offers a fantasy of escape from poverty, of instant success, of power without consequences. Young people consume it voraciously, ignoring the body count, ignoring the graves, ignoring the simple, brutal truth that the fantasy is a lie. The lie is that you can have it all without paying the price. The lie is that the cartel life is glamorous. The lie is that El Chino Antrax was a hero. He was not a hero, he was a killer. He was a man who chose violence over peace, wealth over integrity, fame over family. He was a product of a system that offers few opportunities to the poor, but he was also an active participant in that system's worst excesses. He did not just profit from violence, he perpetrated it. He did not just live in a world of death, he dealt it out with his own hands. The mythology that surrounds him, the corridos, the social media tributes, the fan pages, all of it is a sanitization of a brutal reality. It's a way of pretending that the violence doesn't matter, that the victims are irrelevant, that the only thing that counts is the image, the brand, the legend. But the victims do matter. The thousands of people killed in Mexico's drug war matter. The families destroyed by addiction matter. The children orphaned by cartel violence matter. And Rodrigo Arechiga, for all his charm and charisma, was on the side of the killers. He was part of the machinery of death. To glorify him is to glorify that machinery. To celebrate his life is to celebrate the deaths he caused. And yet, the glorification continues. It continues because the fantasy is so seductive. It continues because the reality is too horrible to face. It continues because, in a world where legitimate success is out of reach for so many, the criminal shortcut looks like the only path. The challenge for Mexico, for the United States, for all of us, is to offer an alternative. To create opportunities that make the cartel life less attractive. To build a society where young people don't have to choose between poverty and violent death. To break the cycle of violence and despair that produces people like Rodrigo Arechiga. It's a monumental task, perhaps an impossible one. The forces that drive the drug trade are enormous. Poverty, corruption, demand for drugs in wealthy countries, the easy availability of weapons. No single policy, no single program, no single leader can solve it. But understanding the story of El Chino Antrax is a start. It's a way of seeing through the myth, of recognizing the human cost of the narco culture, of remembering that behind every filtered photo is a real person with a real family and a real capacity for both good and evil. Rodrigo Arechiga was not a monster. He was a man who made terrible choices and paid a terrible price, a man who hurt others and was hurt in return, a man who, in the end, was just as much a victim of the system he served as the people he killed. This is not to excuse him, it is not to minimize his crimes, it is simply to see him clearly as a human being with all the complexity that entails. Because only by seeing clearly can we hope to understand. and only by understanding can we hope to change. The digital age has given us new tools for storytelling, new ways of sharing experiences, new platforms for building communities. But it has also given us new ways of deceiving ourselves, new forms of illusion, new traps for the unwary. Rodrigo Arechiga fell into those traps. He built his identity on a platform that was designed to exploit his vanity, to amplify his flaws, to broadcast his vulnerabilities to the world. He became a prisoner of his own creation, trapped in a digital hall of mirrors, unable to see the danger until it was too late. His story is a warning for all of us who live online, who curate our identities, who seek validation through screens. It's a reminder that the attention we crave can become a cage, that the likes we collect can become chains, that the followers we accumulate can become a firing squad. In the end, we are all walking the same tightrope, balancing between visibility and vulnerability, between connection and exposure. And if we're not careful, if we lose our balance, we may find ourselves like Rodrigo on a dirt road, wrapped in a blanket, waiting for the world to scroll on by. The world will scroll on. It always does. The tragedy is not that Rodrigo died. The tragedy is that his death changed nothing. The narco culture continues. The influencers keep posting. The young people keep dreaming. The bodies keep falling. And somewhere, in a cemetery in Culiacán, two graves lie side by side. One for a young woman who loved a killer, and one for the killer himself. They are together in death as they could never be in life. And above them, the digital ghosts of their former selves continue to post, continue to like, continue to exist in a limbo of pixels and data, forever young, forever glamorous, forever dead. This is the legacy of El Chino Antrax. This is the story of the man who invented digital narco culture and paid the highest price for vanity. He was the first to understand that power could be measured in followers, and he was the last to comprehend that every like was a coordinate pointing toward his own death. His life was a cautionary tale. His death was a warning. And his digital ghost is a mirror, reflecting our own obsessions, our own vulnerabilities, our own capacity for self-destruction. Look closely at the photos, see the man behind the brand, and ask yourself, what would you risk for a like? What would you pay for a follower? How far would you go to be seen? Because in the digital age, we are all potential Rodrigos. We are all walking the tightrope, and the ground below is very, very hard. The investigation into his death, such as it was, revealed little. The Sinaloa State Attorney General's office, overworked and under-resourced, filed a report and moved on. The case was classified as a homicide, the suspects listed as unknown, the motive listed as probable cartel settling of scores. It was one of thousands of such cases in Mexico, a country where impunity for murder is the norm, not the exception. The US government, for its part, expressed regret at the loss of a valuable cooperating witness, but took no further action. The escape from house arrest was an embarrassment, but not a scandal. The agents involved were quietly reassigned. The protocols were quietly reviewed. The whole incident was quietly forgotten. In the world of international law enforcement, there is no time for mourning. There are always new targets, new cases, new informants. The machine grinds on. For Rodrigo's family, the pain was more lasting. His mother, his father, his surviving siblings, his children, they were left to pick up the pieces, to grieve in private, to deal with the stigma of being related to a notorious killer. They received no justice, no closure, no answers, just a body, finally released from the morgue, and a grave in the cemetery of the Capos. They buried him quietly, with no fanfare, no corridos, no public mourning. The man who lived for attention died without it. The ultimate irony, the final twist. In the days after his death, his social media accounts were flooded with comments. Fans expressed shock, sorrow, admiration. Conspiracy theorists spun tales of CIA plots and cartel double-crosses. Trolls posted mocking messages celebrating the death of a killer. The digital ghost of Rodrigo Arechiga was more active in death than he had been in life, generating engagement, driving traffic, feeding the algorithm. It was a fitting epitaph for the man who had built his empire on attention. Even in death, he was content. But the content was hollow. The engagement was meaningless. The followers were strangers who had never known him, who would never mourn him, who would move on to the next sensation as soon as the news cycle turned. Rodrigo had spent his life chasing an audience that didn't care about him, only about the spectacle he provided. And in the end, the spectacle consumed him. His story is not unique. All around the world, in every country touched by the drug trade, there are young men like him. Ambitious, intelligent, trapped in poverty, seduced by the promise of quick wealth and easy power. They join cartels, join gangs, join criminal networks, believing that they will be the exception, that they will rise to the top and stay there, that they will beat the odds. And one by one, they fall. Killed by rivals, killed by law enforcement, killed by their own allies. The path is well worn, the destination predictable. But still they come, wave after wave, because the alternative, poverty, obscurity, powerlessness, is too terrible to accept. Rodrigo Arechiga was one of them. He was smarter than most, more charismatic, more media savvy. He saw an opportunity in the digital age and seized it. He built a brand, cultivated a following, became a legend. But he was also more foolish than most, more vain, more blind to the dangers of his own creation. He thought his fame would protect him. Instead, it destroyed him. He thought his followers would save him. Instead, they watched him die and then scrolled on. He thought he was building an empire. Instead, he was building his own tomb. The tomb is digital now, a collection of pixels and data, a monument to vanity and violence. It will last as long as the servers hold, as long as the platforms exist, as long as someone remembers the password. But eventually, even digital ghosts fade. The accounts will be deactivated, the photos will be deleted, the comments will be lost. And all that will remain is a story, a cautionary tale, a warning to those who come after. The story of Los Ántrax, the man who had it all and lost it all, the man who was killed by his own creation, the man whose death was a mirror reflecting our own obsessions back at us. Look in the mirror. What do you see? A person or a brand, a human being or a collection of data points waiting to be monetized? The choice is ours, the path is ours, and the end, for all of us, is the same: a body, a grave, a memory. The only question is what we do with the time in between. Rodrigo Arechiga chose violence, vanity, and visibility. He chose the quick path, the easy money, the fleeting fame. And in the end, he got exactly what he chose: a quick death, easy money for his killers, fleeting fame that evaporated as soon as the news cycle turned. He was a product of his time, a reflection of his culture, a symbol of his world. But he was also a human being, with all the potential for good that implies. He could have been an architect, he could have been a pilot, he could have been a father, a husband, a friend. Instead, he became Los Ántrax, and Los Ántrax is dead. The man is gone, the legend remains, and the legend is a lie. The truth is simpler and sadder. The truth is that a boy from Culiacán got lost in a world of violence and never found his way back. The truth is that a young woman died because she loved the wrong man. The truth is that a family was destroyed by choices they didn't make and consequences they couldn't control. The truth is that the drug war is a machine that consumes everyone it touches, and no one, not the capos, not the sicarios, not the politicians, not the law enforcement agents, not the innocent bystanders, escapes unscathed. Rodrigo Arechiga did not escape. He tried. He cooperated with authorities, hoping to buy his freedom. He escaped from house arrest, hoping to buy his revenge. He returned to Sinaloa, hoping to buy his peace. But there is no freedom, no revenge, no peace in the world he chose. There is only death. And death, when it came, was not glamorous. It was not a corridor. It was not a legend. It was a bullet, a blanket, a dirt road, a body in a morgue. That is the truth behind the myth. That is the reality behind the filtered photos. That is the story of Los Ántrax. A story of vanity and violence, of fame and death, of a man who had everything and lost it all. A story that ends, as all such stories end, in a grave. The grave is in Jardín de Humaya, among the other graves of the capos. Tourists visit sometimes, take pictures, wonder at the extravagance of the mausoleums. Rodrigo's grave is modest, unremarkable. It does not draw crowds. It does not inspire corridos. It is just a grave, like any other, holding the remains of a man who once thought he was special. He was not special. He was ordinary, an ordinary man who made extraordinary choices and paid an extraordinary price. His story is worth telling, not because he was unique, but because he was typical. He represents a type, a category, a phenomenon. He is the face of digital narco culture, the archetype of the narco influencer, the template for 1,000 imitators. And his fate is their fate. They will follow him one by one into the grave, because the path he blazed leads only one place, and they are too blind, too addicted, too desperate to see it. So they post, they flex, they boast, they wait, and eventually the call comes. The knock on the door, the bullet in the head, the blanket, the dirt road, the grave, and the world scrolls on, already looking for the next sensation, the next influencer, the next body. This is the legacy of El Chino Antrax. This is the story I was asked to tell. And now it is told. The rest is silence. The silence that follows Rodrigo Arechiga's death is deafening. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of erasure. The man who once filled the digital world with his image, his voice, his brand, is now reduced to a memory, a ghost, a cautionary tale. His accounts sit dormant, frozen in time, digital fossils of a life that burned bright and fast before being extinguished on a dirt road. The likes have stopped, the comments have faded, the engagement is over. He is, finally, invisible. And in that invisibility, there is a terrible irony. He spent his entire adult life fighting to be seen, to be known, to be famous. He achieved that fame, but it cost him everything. And now, in death, he has achieved the one thing he never wanted: obscurity. The world has moved on. There are new influencers to follow, new scandals to consume, new bodies to discover. The digital carnival never stops. It just changes rides. But for those who knew him, for those who loved him, for those who died because of him, the silence is not obscurity. It is grief. It is loss. It is the unbearable weight of absence. His mother, assuming she still lives, must grapple with the knowledge that her son became a monster, that the boy she raised, the child she loved, grew up to be a killer. His daughter, now a young woman, must carry the burden of his name, the stigma of his legacy, the memory of a father she barely knew. His son with Yuriana, orphaned twice over, must navigate a world without parents, without guidance, without the love that every child deserves. The collateral damage of Rodrigo's choices is incalculable. It extends far beyond the bodies he left in his wake. It reaches into the lives of everyone who loved him, everyone who depended on him, everyone who hoped he would choose a different path. And it reaches into the future, shaping the next generation, perpetuating the cycle of violence and loss. Because the children of the cartel world rarely escape. They are born into it, raised in it, shaped by it. They inherit not just their parents' names, but their parents' enemies, their parents' debts, their parents' fates. The son of El Chino Antrax, growing up in the shadow of his father's legend, will face choices that no child should have to face. Will he embrace the legacy, follow the path, become another link in the chain of violence? Or will he reject it, walk away, try to build something new? The odds are against him. The weight of history is heavy, and the world offers few alternatives. This is the true tragedy of the narco culture that Rodrigo helped create. It is a self-perpetuating machine, a cycle of violence and loss that spans generations. It consumes the young, spits out the dead, and leaves the survivors to pick up the pieces. And it shows no signs of stopping. Because as long as there is poverty, as long as there is inequality, as long as there is demand for drugs in the wealthy countries of the North, there will be young men like Rodrigo ready to risk everything for a chance at the dream. The dream is a lie, the dream is a trap, but it is a compelling lie, a seductive trap, and millions of young people are walking into it every day, their eyes fixed on the screens that promise fame and fortune, blind to the graves that await them at the end of the path. Rodrigo Arechiga was one of them. He was not a genius, not a visionary, not a hero. He was a product of his environment, a reflection of his culture, a symbol of his time. He saw an opportunity and seized it. He built a brand and sold it. He became famous and died. That is his story in its simplest form. But within that simplicity lies infinite complexity. The forces that shaped him, the choices he made, the consequences he faced. All of it is woven into the larger tapestry of Mexico's drug war. A conflict that has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives and shows no signs of ending. To understand Rodrigo is to understand something about that war. To see him clearly is to see the machinery of death that operates just beneath the surface of Mexican society. And to mourn him, even a little, is to acknowledge the humanity that is lost every time another young man picks up a gun and chooses the path of violence. He was a killer, he was a criminal, he was responsible for untold suffering, but he was also a human being. And in that humanity, there is a lesson. Not a lesson about forgiveness or redemption, but a lesson about the complexity of evil. Evil is not a monster with horns and a tail. Evil is a young man from a decent family who makes a series of bad choices and ends up torturing and killing his enemies. Evil is a system that offers no alternatives, that traps people in cycles of violence, that makes the easy path the only path. Evil is the demand for drugs in rich countries that fuels the supply in poor ones. Evil is the corruption that allows cartels to operate with impunity. Evil is the poverty that makes the cartel life seem like the only way out. Rodrigo Arechiga was a product of all these evils. He was also a perpetrator of them. He was both victim and villain, both cause and effect. And in that duality, he is a mirror reflecting the world that made him, the world that destroyed him, the world that continues to produce him in endless, tragic succession. The question is not whether we will see ourselves in that mirror. The question is whether we will look away. The digital age has given us unprecedented power to look. We can see into the lives of people on the other side of the world. We can witness their joys, their sorrows, their deaths. We can consume their stories as content, as entertainment, as distraction. But looking is not the same as seeing, and consuming is not the same as understanding. To truly see Rodrigo Arechiga, to truly understand his story, we must look beyond the filtered photos and the corridors and the legend. We must see the boy who wanted to fly, the young man who sold tacos, the father who lost his daughter, the killer who was killed. We must see the humanity beneath the monster, the vulnerability beneath the bravado, the fear beneath the fame. And we must ask ourselves, what would it take to create a world where stories like this are no longer possible? What would it take to offer young people alternatives to violence? What would it take to break the cycle? The answers are not simple. They involve addressing poverty, inequality, corruption, and demand for drugs. They involve building institutions that work, creating opportunities that are real, offering hope that is tangible. They involve a fundamental reimagining of our societies, our economies, our values. It is a daunting task, perhaps an impossible one. But the alternative is more dirt roads, more blankets, more bodies. The alternative is more Rodrigos, more Yurianas, more children orphaned by violence. The alternative is the endless, grinding continuation of a war that has no winners, only casualties. Rodrigo Arechiga is dead. His story is over. But the forces that created him are still alive. And as long as they exist, there will be others to take his place. Others who will post their photos, flex their wealth, build their brands. Others who will kill and be killed. Others who will learn, too late, that the spotlight is a target and the likes are a death sentence. The cycle continues, the wheel turns, and the digital ghosts multiply. In the end, perhaps the only thing we can do is remember the names, the faces, the stories. Remember the humanity behind the headlines. Remember that everybody on a dirt road was once a person, with dreams and fears and loved ones. Remember that every killer was once a child, with potential and possibility. Remember that every tragedy is a failure, not just of the individual, but of the society that allowed it to happen. Remembering is not enough, but it is a start. It is a refusal to look away. It is an acknowledgement that these lives matter, that these deaths are not just statistics, that these stories deserve to be told. The story of Los Ántrax has been told. It is a story of vanity and violence, of fame and death, of a man who had everything and lost it all. It is a story that ends, as all such stories end, in a grave. But the telling is not the end. The telling is a beginning of understanding, a beginning of change, a beginning of hope. Because as long as we remember, as long as we tell the stories, as long as we refuse to look away, there is a chance. A chance that the next Rodrigo will choose a different path. A chance that the next Yuriana will live. A chance that the cycle can be broken. It is a small chance, a fragile chance. A chance that rests on the power of stories to change minds, to open hearts, to inspire action. But it is a chance. And in a world of darkness, a small chance is enough. Enough to keep telling the stories. Enough to keep remembering the names. Enough to keep hoping for a better future. Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa, El Chino Ántrax, born June 15, 1980. Died May 16, 2020. A life, a death, a story. Remember him, not as a legend, not as a monster, but as a human being who made terrible choices and paid a terrible price. A human being who was loved and who loved, who killed and was killed, who lived and died in the glaring, unforgiving light of the digital age. Remember him, and then do something, anything, to make sure that the next story has a different ending. Because the stories are not over, the bodies are still falling, the digital ghosts are still multiplying, and the world is still watching, scrolling, liking, and moving on. But we don't have to move on. We can stop, we can look, we can see, we can remember, and in remembering we can change. The story of Los Ántrax is a mirror. Look into it. What do you see? A reflection of a world that glorifies violence and celebrates vanity. A reflection of a culture that values fame over humanity and likes over lives. A reflection of yourself, scrolling through the digital carnival, consuming the tragedies of strangers as entertainment? Look closely. The mirror does not lie. It shows us who we are. And who we are is the audience for stories like this. The consumers of digital death. The mourners who never knew the dead. The followers who build the legends and then move on to the next one. We are part of the story. We are complicit in the cycle. Because without our attention, without our likes, without our consumption, the narco culture would have no power. The influencers would have no audience. The legends would have no life. We feed the machine, and the machine feeds on us. Rodrigo Arechiga understood this. He understood that attention was power, that visibility was currency, that the audience was everything. He built his empire on our gaze, and when we looked away, he died. We looked away. We always do. There is always a new story, a new tragedy, a new body. The digital carnival never stops, and we never stop consuming. This is the uncomfortable truth at the heart of his story. We are not innocent bystanders. We are active participants. We are the ones who like, who share, who comment, who scroll. We are the ones who build the legends and then abandon them. We are the ones who make the narco culture possible. And until we change, the cycle will continue. The Rodrigos will keep rising. The Yurianas will keep dying. The digital ghosts will keep multiplying. And the world will keep watching, scrolling, liking, and moving on. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can choose to look differently. We can choose to see the humanity behind the headlines. We can choose to remember the names and the faces and the stories. We can choose to care. And in caring, we can begin to change. Change is slow. Change is hard. Change is uncertain. But it is possible. It begins with a single act of attention, a single moment of seeing clearly, a single story truly understood. This story, the story of Los Ántrax. The story of the man who invented digital narco culture and paid the highest price for vanity. The story of a life and a death and a legacy. The story of all of us reflected in the mirror of his fate. Look, see, remember, and then act, because the story is not over. It never is. The final chapter is unwritten, and we are the authors. The choice is ours. The path is ours. The future is ours. Let us choose wisely. Let us choose humanity over vanity. Let us choose life over death. Let us choose a different story. For Rodrigo, for Yuriana, for all the digital ghosts, and for ourselves. The end.